live, laugh.
Don't book Noahveil. Noahveil isn't championship material. Noahveil isn't somebody that you should have on your show with their dazzling moves, their captivating spectacle, or their impeccable fashion sense. Noahveil isn't lovable, and Noahveil isn't hateable. Noahveil isn't somebody that is thanked God for across the country, and Noahveil certainly has to be too expensive for your show because Noahveil doesn't negotiate on price. Noahveil isn't a championship caliber athlete capable of defending titles in a singles or a tag team competitive sense with their tag partner at the Ramada in the Night City Machine Gun. Noahveil isn't fantastic queer representation. And Noahveil most certainly isn't over. But if they were,
all right. Welcome to the podcast, everyone listening. My name is Daniel. I'm joined by Noahveil. Usually I try to put like a highlight video together, but I thought that video that you did perfectly like encapsulated everything. So I thought it would be best just to share that. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay, and I thank you for saying those kind things about that.
Yeah. I think what really sets people apart in this day and age in wrestling is finding your voice, because wrestling has been so formulaic, especially on the indies. It's just like you get in your car and you're like, I'm going to face this guy and we're going to have this kind of fight and all this stuff. And the people that are really like branching out and doing crazy things are the people that are thinking outside the box and doing these cool things. So when you see stuff like that, it kind of automatically is like, this person gets it. So really cool video. Before we start, where can everybody find you on all of your socials, and what's the best way to get in contact if someone were to go against your advice and want to book Noahveil?
If somebody did want to do the horrible task of trying to book Noahveil, you can find me on all of my socials. On Twitter, you can find me at NoahXVeil. On Instagram, you can find me at NoahVeil97. If you want to try and find me on Facebook, you can find me under Noahveil. It'll be easy. You can find the one that looks like me.
Yeah.
Those are my three main socials, and if anybody wants to try and book me, you can either DM me there or you can contact me at my booking email, noahveilbookings@gmail.com.
Awesome. And this will be coming out, I don't know the exact date, next week, sometime mid-week next week. So are there any shows that people can come in and catch you at in the near future?
Next week, if you find yourself near the world famous Jeffersonville Arena, I will be defending my Paradigm Pro Wrestling Super Middleweight Championship against A-Game at Paradigm Pro Wrestling. After that, I will also be in Orlando, Florida at the Establishment defending my WNRN All Florida Championship. And I think that's it off the top of my head. Oh, there's one more. Actually, on March 16th, I will be defending my WNRN All Florida Championship once more against one young up-and-comer, the Shark, Cruz Rivera, and my good close friend, the Captain Aranova in Tampa, Florida.
Nice. So if I'm correct, you're based in the Florida area?
I am.
I'm very interested in regional gas stations. I think with wrestling, gas stations kind of go hand in hand. So what are your go-to gas stations when you're road tripping through Florida?
Yeah, okay. So road tripping through Florida specifically, I'll give you the one in Florida, and then I'll give you the one that is the pillar and the monument of all Florida wrestlers that are traveling out of the state.
Okay.
In Florida, big Wawa fan. Huge Wawa fan is Noahveil.
Yes.
The Italian subs, mwah. I've also found that they have like a smoothie section in their like beverage thing or whatever. And I don't know what's happened, but something in me has decided that ice cream is the devil and that smoothies are the way to go.
Uh-huh.
And Wawa makes a hell of a smoothie.
Yeah.
If we're traveling out of the state, if I want to say it's about somewhere around the 6-hour mark when you first get out of Florida and you start entering into Georgia, the flagship of any good trip is the stop at the Buc-ee's near the Florida Georgia border.
Yeah.
perfect.
See, first off, I want to talk about Wawa because I forgot Florida had Wawa.
Oh yeah,
My wife's family is from the Philadelphia area, and they baptized me into Wawa,
it's
um,
fantastic.
and I'm obsessed. I don't get it much, which I think kind of maintains the prestige of it. But
Right.
like anytime somebody goes up, it's like put in your Wawa orders. Anybody who knows me knows I love Wawa. So great choice. Uh, Bucky's, a madhouse, but they have
Oh
everything you
yeah,
could possibly want.
it is the worst kind of sensory overload.
Yes.
Um, and like, so when I first started going to them, we would always get there very early in the morning
Mhm.
because the cars we were organizing at that point left a lot earlier. So at that point, I was getting there. It wasn't too busy. It was still like a Bucky's, but it wasn't like it wasn't the madhouse that it usually is around like noon or so. Then I got controls of making the times of the cars, and a bitch likes to sleep in. So when this happened, we started leaving like a lot later, and we would arrive to the Bucky's. Well, I shouldn't say a lot later. We would leave like an hour later, which in wrestling road trip may as well mean that we're leaving the next fucking day.
Yeah.
Um, we would arrive at the Bucky's at a time not maybe about an hour or so before rush hour. And when I tell you that it looked like we had packed the entire state of Florida into this tiny ass Bucky's, it was terrible every single time. It's awful, but I'll do it because the brisket slaps.
Yeah, the brisket's good. Bathrooms super clean.
It
Um,
is insane. I I feel the need to baptize people into Bucky's whenever I take them on the trips.
yeah.
Specifically, like uh, took my partner with me to one of the Naptown All Pro shows in Indiana, and they had never been inside of a Bucky's before. And I made a point of showing them the immaculate status of the Bucky's house of toilets.
Yeah. It's insane how they can do it with that many people in there is like somebody should
Madness.
be studying their training and implement it in our government or something because it is flawless.
It is like, for me, it's the people that are like live in front of me cutting the brisket and the
Yeah.
food and like preparing it. And then you've got like a mom and her kids running around trying to figure out where they can find fucking like earplugs or something.
Yeah.
Or you've got 17 like baseball player children that are raiding the
Yeah.
chips, and like they're just cutting away,
Yeah.
pretending like it's not happening.
Yeah, they're just in their own little world back there behind the glass. Um, Somebody's going to Bucky's for the first time. What are you recommending that they walk out with?
Oh, I will recommend that you walk out with at least one Bucky's branded item. And I don't mean like a Bucky's bag of like chips. I mean like a weird Bucky's item. I mean like you need to leave with like the Bucky's like peanut brittle, the Bucky's for me it's the Bucky's cotton candy mints. Every single time. Stock up on them. Refuse. Like a Bucky's soda, not a Coke, specifically a Bucky's soda. Like just something odd. Can't go wrong with the brisket, of course.
Yeah.
I will, till my dying day, Bucky's brisket is fire.
Yeah, I agree. Corn nuggets or beaver nuggets, those are good. Those
They're
are
not, I
cliche.
had, yeah,
They're the
they're
cliche.
not, I, when we went, and I don't know what happened, but I haven't seen them up until yet in the times that we've gone, but they had tater tots. And every single time we go to the Bucky's, I'm after these tater tots. I demand these tater tots, and I can never find them.
The elusive Bucky's tater tots.
The elusive Bucky's tater tots.
So we have like a thing where we want to be the catalyst for people to bring wrestlers stuff to shows. So if
Mm,
anybody can get Bucky's tater tots and
please,
you're a show that
please,
Noah Vale is
I
wrestling,
will
bring them.
I will love you forever.
Yeah. So if that happens, you'll have to let us know. I don't think it's happened yet, but we plug it a lot. Um, but your career at this point, you're on the road, you're traveling, you're going to Bucky's, you're going to all these gas stations, you're traveling. Where does this all start for you with wrestling? Like, where was the moment that you kind of like, where is it, as a kid or like a teenager that you kind of discovered wrestling?
So my origin story with wrestling is a bit uh, unconventional, let's say. So my uncle, huge wrestling fan when he was younger. he grew up during like the Monday Night Wars and everything, and he watched it all the time. It was his jam. And I would inherit a lot of things that he would leave at the house because when I was born, my aunts, uncles, and my mother were still relatively like pretty young in their like 20s to adolescent ages, or I should say young adults ages. So when he had moved out, he left a bunch of items behind that just by default became mine.
Mhm.
He left behind a PlayStation 1 with a copy of the WCW Nitro game.
Yeah.
I, as a child, had no concept of what WCW was. I vaguely recognized these people that I had seen on television, like Chris Benoit with the weird mullet, or Hulk Hogan in black, or this weird guy named Sting who was screaming at me. Like,
Yeah.
and so I would play that with no context of what professional wrestling was, and the game was terrible, objectively,
Oh, yeah.
horrible game. But I was so fascinated by this, like, who are these people? What's a Diamond Dallas Page?
Mhm.
Like, so fast forward, and my uncle has left a copy of, I want to say, Vengeance 2001, the one where where Chris Jericho wins the undisputed title.
Okay.
And I snuck it from where my mom had locked it away, and I put it in the little DVD player, and I put it on, and I was beset by the Dudleys, and Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle at his peak and all these really cool things, but it still hadn't like clicked in my head yet that I loved pro wrestling. Fast forward a little bit, and randomly during high school, I just go down a rabbit hole and I start finding old pro wrestling clips. I start finding old clips of the Nexus, and I'm like, man, the Nexus is really fucking cool. And that was it. After that, it just became a hyperfixation, an obsession, whatever. I just, at that point, I really liked wrestling. So it's a weird thing that had kind of always been there,
Yeah.
but it clicked when I got into high school,
Yeah.
really.
So the Nexus is kind of what brought you in. You discovered the Nexus. Are you just like from there going down even more of a rabbit hole, looking at past stuff? Are you like binging the current product? Or where do you go from there?
So my friend and I, every Monday, we would have like a Skype call where we just watched Raw together.
Yeah.
Because as I got into it, and I talked to him about it, and he had a vague understanding of wrestling at the time, so we would kind of just watch it together. And he was less into it than I was, so he would have the let's call it the realist's opinion, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was just into the things I thought was super sick, specifically primetime players. But when I discovered the Nexus and really started getting into it, I started trying to watch as much content about that specific run of the group as I could.
Mhm.
And that led me to finding out about the original season of NXT. And then I started trying to find stuff about the individual members. And I'm sure it was Daniel Bryan or PJ Black, probably PJ Black.
Uh,
I found out they came from the Indies. And at that point, I didn't understand the concept of what the Indies were. And so by going down that rabbit hole, I started to discover things. And the match that specifically made me be like, man, wrestling is fucking sick. It was Samurai Del Sol / Kalisto versus AR Fox in a CZW ring.
wow.
And that shit was nuts.
Mhm.
Like, at
Yeah.
that point, it didn't convince me that I wanted to be a wrestler, but it convinced me like wrestling is the greatest thing that's ever existed.
Yeah, of course. I think everybody has that one match that kind of like defines that. You mentioned the Nexus. Who is your favorite Nexus member?
Oh God. At the time, it's a tie between probably PJ Black and Wade Barrett, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know what it was about Barrett, but Wade was cool, man. He is. He's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I underrated like his run with the IC title and like the bad news.
So underrated. And I think it's at that time he just kind of fell into this role of people being like, oh well, he's just a gimmick, he's never gonna get a great, but like those guys who can take these characters and make them into something that's more of a like a fixture of a program. for me, are like some of the best on
Yeah.
the roster. Like, it's part of the reason why I liked the primetime players so much when we were watching Raw together in like around the pre-authority era.
Yeah.
They were there every week, and I wanted to see them win because like they were hype as fuck. I don't like
Yeah.
millions of dollars. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had a lot of charisma. Do you have a Mount Rushmore of like favorite wrestlers like that you've like kind of established? Like maybe not like the indie wrestlers, but like let's just say
God.
TV wrestlers.
So I need some clarification. When you say the Mount Rushmore of just wrestlers in general, and are we excluding the indies in this, or are we including just everything?
We could do everything, whatever you want.
I'm you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you my WWE answer. I'm gonna give you my indie answer because they will eat me alive if I don't say certain names.
Yeah.
I think if we're going for the WWE, my personal favorites of all time, we're going to go with Stone Cold, Rowdy Piper. It's my personal Mount Rushmore. Big Jake the Snake fan.
Yeah.
We'll go The Rock, and then sleeper hit, but I don't care. Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes, yeah, no, yeah. He's one of the biggest guys in the world right now. And I'll go say it, like I enjoyed Stardust.
Same.
Stardust was fun.
I have a very passionate opinion about Stardust.
I'd love
So
to hear it.
when Stardust was with the Ascension, legitimately one of the greatest factions that's ever been created in professional wrestling. I'm tired of pretending like they aren't great. I'm tired of people pretending like they shouldn't have had the IC and the tag belts,
Yeah.
and that they shouldn't have just been the 1980s WWE come back to beat the shit out of everyone. Like,
The Ascension and NXT were like this 2-year historic reign, and then they
they were
just kind of
amazing.
they get up to the main roster often like most people did, and then they just kind of Vince gets his hands on them, and
And it was so sad. Like, I feel like there's two ways to go whenever you get those comparisons to other people. You can either go so far left where you're trying to differentiate yourself, and like in the case of a Ascension, with everyone comparing them to like the Legion of Doom and the Road Warriors, like just go with it. Just be the Road Warriors. Just say fuck it. We're just gonna beat the shit out of everybody now. Like, okay, that's fine.
yeah. I just like a comparison to the outside world. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Greta Van Fleet.
Yes.
They're Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, 100%.
They're exactly Led Zeppelin, and that's why people love them. Like
Yeah,
sometimes
and
people
like,
just want a throwback.
and that's perfectly like okay. Like, there's a lot of things that can be said about somebody who just being able to return someone to a feeling of a past era
Yeah.
in itself can be a good form of creativity, because that's hard to do. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many take FTR for example.
Mm.
Them being able to encapsulate an entire era of professional wrestling and a style that does not exist, but modernize it for the contemporary audience is a fucking skill. Like,
Yeah, and to do it successfully across the world. Like
exactly.
they've held belts in all of the major promotions at this point.
And like, for me, Cosmic Wasteland 100% could have been that group. It's the Dungeon of Doom. It's the Alliance to End Hulkamania. Like, it's those groups brought into a modern era, and then you just throw them up against whoever super good babyface is, and he has to go into the weird cave that Ultimate Warrior went in and get hit with the snake poison. Like, it's fire. It's just, you can just have fun with professional wrestling.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. Like there's different kinds of fun. There's like the goofy fun, and then there's like some of like the Pizza Hut Battle Royal they did it. Like there's good and
Absolutely.
bad fun, and they just need to learn that like I think sometimes people forget the reason they got into wrestling, especially people that are in wrestling,
Yeah,
and kind of take it too seriously. And I think that's a detriment for a lot of people. Um, but I'm sure we could talk about Stardust all day.
absolutely.
Favorite Stardust?
Um, I so I don't have a specific one. How this is going to kind of be weird.
Yeah.
There is this edit that I saw when I was a kid. There was a YouTube channel that made these like mock pay-per-view hype videos,
Uh-huh.
and I remember specifically whenever Stardust and Goldust were feuding at the time, they didn't get the greatest of builds.
Hmm.
And this YouTube channel created a better hype package about it, and it made me so invested in this story that was honestly a throwaway match.
Yeah.
But like that for me of the potential of Stardust is my favorite moment of Stardust.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy too, like the Stardust Gold Dust being able to happen, and then a few years later in AEW you have the Cody and Dustin match where like
Exactly.
it's like the same people, completely different, like
Yep.
completely different. And I think that's what I love about wrestling. Is there a certain point, like you said, that the Samurai Del Sol versus, I'm gonna remember it, or am I? Oh, AR Fox match.
Bingo.
That's what made you like click. What point made you go, I want to do this professionally?
For me, it was I so around after discovering the American independence and so on and so forth, I started just digging around, and
Uh,
eventually that led me down the rabbit hole of the kind of global wrestling scene, I suppose.
yeah.
um, I wasn't a big social media kid, so like I really avoided a lot of that, and I pretty much was just in my own sort of world of discovering wrestling. And I didn't have friends on Twitter or
Yeah.
whatever that we could share this information with. So everything I was finding, I was just finding through clips on YouTube and just random stuff, and just looking up wrestlers. Um, I found I went down the rabbit hole. Eventually, found Low Key because I got to TNA and the X
Mhm.
Division. From Low Key, I find out about Finn Balor, Kota Ibushi, and their triple threat match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah.
And that match was the moment I was like, I want to do this.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like, I think the, like, as somebody who before like I started working in wrestling was a fan, I think the access to the internet kind of ruins it sometimes.
A little bit.
You're told who is supposed to be the best person. You're told who you're supposed to like. You're kind of like there's the pessimism that comes with it wherever, no matter what, nobody's doing what they need to be doing. But like there's that moment, like for me, like when I first like went down the rabbit hole was in like middle school. Do you remember LimeWire?
Yeah,
So I would just go on LimeWire and I would just download all the clips I could of wrestling. Like,
fire.
and yeah, so it was just like just the want of more of something that you love kind of helps mold what you actually like, because you're not having the external pressure of people telling you what you need to do, and it kind of lets
And,
you develop.
and for me, I think that's why when it comes to the kind of wrestling that I like, or the wrestlers that I like, they're, I don't want to say unconventional, but
Yeah.
it's stuff that like just drew my attention. Like I got very invested in like the British wrestling scene and its history over there.
Mm.
The catch as catch can style, some of the old World of Sport stuff. Um, very like some of my favorite wrestlers, tying it all back to the
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
indie wrestling Mount Rushmore. It's guys like T.J. Perkins, Alex Shelley, Shug D. It's
Oh yeah.
dudes who I was like the Low Keys. It's guys that I was watching when I was younger that are your AR Foxes, your Jay Lethals, fucking your Adam Coles. Um, it's guys like that, your Kevin Steens, who like really put into my head like wrestling is so much bigger than what a lot of people think, and that there's more that you can do with professional wrestling and the styles that you can have, and you can explore these different avenues and these different genres, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
and really find some weird shit. Like a lot of people, when they look at me and how I present myself, don't think that I'm a huge Zack Sabre Jr. or Chris Hero mark.
Yeah.
I'm a massive Zack Sabre Jr. and Chris Hero mark. They're fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah, they are. I think Chris Hero. I'm so super glad he's back. By the way,
same.
definitely like an underrated dude. My introduction to him was Cassius Ono, which is kind of weird. But being able to like, go back in the PWG era and all those great matches that he's had over the years, definitely.
I want to say my intro to Chris Hero was his return at Final Battle for Ring of Honor.
Mhm.
It was I want to say it was Michael Elgin versus Adam Cole before he like really became Adam Cole.
Yeah,
And Chris Hero's music hit, and I didn't understand why it was so cool, but I could feel that it was really cool and important. And then after that, I started looking in, and I was like, Chris Hero's fucking cool.
it's amazing. Yeah, there's a match between him and Eddie Kingston. I think it was like AIW. It's
Hell
so
yeah.
good. One of my favorite matches. So you've kind of dive into this world. You see that triple threat. You're like, I think I want to do this. Where do you go from there?
So at first, it's just the still being in high school, preparing yourself for it. It's like a virus, like a worm.
Yeah.
So the hyperfixation is set in, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm fucking I'm designing gear and stuff when I should be like doing my chemistry homework. Like
Yeah.
I'm making creator wrestlers, and I'm drawing out all these complicated story, like just something to get the energy out.
Yeah.
And after I graduate and so on, I get to the point where I can start looking for schools, and the area of Florida that I'm in, I am minimum like an hour or two away from everything, just
Yeah.
everything. And so I was like, fuck, I don't have a car right now. I can't really do this. But on a whim, I decided to hit up a wrestling school just to see if there was anything that what tuition was, just get information.
Mhm.
The person running the school, who would end up becoming my trainer, is basically like, yeah, if you want to come by tomorrow, you can have like a tryout and see how you like it. And I'm like, oh fuck, I have no ride, I have no way of getting there. So I asked one of my friends if he'd be willing to, ask his parents at that point to help
Yeah.
give me a ride up there. And after that, it was just that was just a habit. It was just going
Yeah.
every couple weeks to training. I started training with Definitive Wrestling International in Ruskin, Florida, in a flea market it was a Target that was converted into a flea market
Okay.
in the very back of the building. And yeah, I was the only new trainee at the time. Everyone else was about to debut or had already debuted. So it was basically just me.
So if I'm understanding this correct, this is a wrestling school in a flea market.
Yes, sir.
Is there is there any way to like separate the flea market from the school, or is it just
So you walk into the building of what was once the Kmart. Basically, you walk in and you walk down this long aisle. All the shops are on your side, and they know that you're one of the wrestlers because flea market does not get a lot of traffic because it's
Yeah.
in one of the rural areas of Florida. So barely any fucking traffic. You're walking through this flea market. They all know that you're one of the wrestlers, and
Yeah.
it's dudes trying to pawn off old fishing poles and like some ladies selling their old pottery and shit. And then there's a slight wall, and when you hang a left, on the other side of that wall is a wrestling ring, and then maybe like 20 or 30 chairs set up around it.
Uh,
And there's usually either the trainer or some other, some guys from the shows that are in there just rolling around,
yeah.
trying stuff out.
That's amazing. I love wrestling just for like reasons like that. Like wrestling can be the amazing thing like on TV that everybody loves, but it's stories like that where it's almost like wrestling is like the cockroach. Like it'll find a way to
100%.
survive no matter where, if it's a barn, if it's somebody's backyard.
So a lot of my friends are trained by Jay Lethal, and there's a lot of schools down here, Lethal Academies, your Dark Prospects with Malachi Black, all of that. I have this weird sense of pride when I tell them about my upbringing in wrestling because I've gone to some of their schools to train and they've got these crash pads and heavy bags and like
Yeah.
all this state of the art equipment. And I'm like, dude, our fucking ropes were like covered with like garden hose tubes. Like we were as DIY punk rock as physically possible.
Yeah.
And I love it.
That's awesome. What was your moment like when you first stepped in the ring? What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh. It was the most anxiety ridden I think I've ever been in my entire life. Like it was completely nerve wracking because we immediately started off with, I'm going to teach you how to bump.
Yeah.
And then did a couple trials of that. And after that, he was like, do you want to keep going? And I was like, probably. And he was like, okay, cool. Come back the next week. And
Yeah.
it was just, I was really nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was very anxious. And it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Training was a time for sure.
Yeah. So you had these years of building up who your character was. How did that mesh with the reality of actually training? Like, was it different than what you thought? Obviously, that's a dumb question. It's definitely different than what you thought. But like, how did that mesh? I guess.
So when I was training, my trainer, Anthony Devlin, he is very much somebody who wanted me to be as technically sound as possible.
Mhm.
He was like, look, all that character shit, all that other stuff, that doesn't matter. You need to be able to not dump somebody on their neck by accident and kill them. Like that was his biggest priority. So when I first started training, I had all these like lofty ideas inside of my head of what I wanted to be and what my persona and so on and so forth. And everyone has their ideas of what they want to be as a professional wrestler. And I think what ends up happening is your idea of what you want to be as a professional wrestler breaks because you as a real person starts to come through.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what happened for me was I, for a very long period of time, didn't really have a persona, didn't really have a character. I bought $20 tights off of Redbubble, wore my patched out leather jacket because I was a dirty punk kid, and that was what I did.
Yeah.
And just as I've grown as a human being and as I've gotten older and wiser and more comfortable with myself, that's when things started to properly develop, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, oftentimes people, I don't really call myself a character necessarily because I'm just me.
Yeah. I think that's a common theme with most wrestlers is like it's just yourself turned up to like 11.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I think wrestling in a sense, or at least character work, is like learning an instrument. Like
Oh yeah.
you're not gonna be like shredding when you're learning. You're gonna try to figure out how to play like Kumbaya first. And then once you figure that out, you slowly and then you've been playing it long enough, and then you could move or do this, or you could play this, and then next thing you know, you're like Eddie Van Halen, just like
Fat Mike says this thing where, because people oftentimes forget that he's like a classically trained musician and all
yeah,
this stuff. And his whole thing was always like, I had to learn the basics before, I had to learn all of the rules before I could break them.
yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of my that's kind of my and just I think a good philosophy with anything is like
Yeah,
if you want to be a disruptor or you want to be able to do your thing, you have to learn what all the rules are, and then you can pick and choose which rules you actually want to follow and which ones you're like, I don't need to do that.
yeah. What are your like in wrestling? There's all these unspoken rules. What are your like biggest, or what would you say are like the dumbest unspoken rules in wrestling?
I uh I'm not a big proponent of you need to follow someone's advice just because they've been doing it longer than you, or that you need to, I shouldn't say respect. that you need to be given priority just because you've been doing wrestling for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a bigger proponent of like, are they a shit human being?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then I don't care what you've done. I don't care who you are. You're a shit human being, and I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And also sometimes that advice just doesn't fit you as a person. I've been told things from very reputable people who have told me to do things that I don't do because I don't want to.
Yeah.
That I think is dumb. I think that the unspoken rule of like there's a way in which a match is supposed to be structured based upon size is kind of stupid.
Mhm.
I hate controversial maybe. I hate like 1980s like very basic like wrestling structure and the way that those things can be set up as like a smaller person because if you'll always be put into the same box. I'm a big proponent of like creative ways of getting over those same concepts and creative ways of doing those things. I absolutely fucking despise the structure of like, oh well, I'm bigger than you, so it's going to be like immediate hot start, heat, 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 heat. You hit me with the Hurricane Run, like fuck that, man. We're not doing that. Take this drop kick to the leg, eat this wet willy mahi straw. We're going to keep it moving. We got things to get over.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also not. I guess the last unspoken rule that I think I dislike. This is hard. These are hard questions.
Sorry.
Nah, baby, this is what we live for. The last unspoken rule that I dislike. There is this weird unspoken rule amongst wrestlers, and it's not necessarily something that's been imposed by like the old vets. They fucking hate like good marketing. Like it's really weird. Like a lot of them dislike the concept of you being very braggadocious about your accomplishments or you I don't want to say putting yourself over, but putting yourself over
Yeah.
to the mass audience of people who pay attention to you. It's almost like a lot of them have this unspoken rule of keep your mouth shut, put your head down, grind, and then eventually, when we are ready to give you your recognition, we'll give it to you. But
Yeah.
you don't get to get your flowers from people that aren't us.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that.
I don't like that shit at all, man.
Yeah.
I am
I've seen like people complaining about like the flyers people make of like their booking graphics and stuff like oh like why not, why would you not put something out to make it easier to book yourself? Why would you not, even if the six like if you, I was a marketing major in college and the success rate of most marketing campaigns is very low. It's all about like getting like that's why they blast your like mail with junk mail. It's because maybe one thing will get through. And in a
100%.
world where there's so many wrestlers, you have to do something to differentiate yourself. And
And that's, I think, part of my thing with it is like I hate the wrestling philosophies that aren't followed through by some people, where it's this thing of just like, well, you have to treat yourself like a business and you have to be da 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 da, but then they don't do the things that businesses actually do.
yeah,
Um, like I understand the fact that you want me to be like all of us have a booking email. What that okay, cool, that doesn't do anything. Like fucking this is the 21st century. Maybe it's not a bad thing for people to be promoting themselves on social media because people don't really email each other that often.
yeah,
Um, maybe it's not a bad idea for you to put out a booking graphic or a hype video package, or
yeah,
even better yet, for you to tell people that, hey, I'm going out and doing this, or hey, I'm going out and doing this. I'm traveling to this place and this place and this place, and I've won this and this, this and this, and to make people aware of the accomplishments of what you're doing because they aren't going to search that out.
no,
You have to tell people. And if you don't tell people, then you're just some random person uh, in tights. And that's garbage.
yeah. There's so many wrestlers. Like
There's
I
so
was
many wrestlers.
like it's impossible to know all of the wrestlers. I consider myself like pretty decently knowledgeable on wrestlers, but like I'll see a graphic from 2 states over, and I would be like, who the fuck are these guys? And then you kind of watch, you get to know them. You're like, oh, everybody on this card is good. It's just I've never heard of
Yep.
them. And I think
And that's a big thing with trying to stand out, because it's like, I don't like to say that there are territories, but there are territories. Like, there are barriers of entry, and it's almost like collections of states, or some states just by themselves are their own place,
yeah,
and it's to penetrate that is very difficult, but you have to, or else you're only going to be known in that small region.
yeah, yeah. I'm based out of like the Raleigh, North Carolina area, and the Carolinas is very distinct like territory. Like Georgia is its own territory, Florida is its
Yep.
own territory, and like there's Florida guys, and then like Florida guys I think of Merrick Donovan, yourself, um God, I'm blanking right now. Robert Martyr, like guys like that that are out there, kind of spreading yourself out and making that impact. Um, the video we played at the beginning I think kind of goes hand in hand with our discussion. What was your kind of thought process in making that? And
So, my original inspiration, I was talking to someone, and they had compared me to another wrestler. And this wrestler at one point had put out a video of themselves, kind of acting in a very infomercial way of explaining, like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. These are the benefits of booking me, and these are the great things that I'm capable of doing. And that kind of gave me the germ of an idea of, well, what if I did something like that? And like, how would I go about it?
yeah,
Because I am, I can admit certain faults within myself. I have a very weird and a very different wrestling style. My wrestling style is not something that I particularly think is strong enough to book me on alone. I think that there are very few wrestlers that are honestly capable of being booked on purely by the incredible athletic feats that they're capable of doing.
yeah,
Um, and the ones that are already scooped up most everywhere. So I know that my strength is in communicating with people. I can explain no avail a lot better than I think I can show someone no avail. So when going around and putting it together, I have a very, let's say, bratty and tongue-in-cheek personality when it comes to things. I like being someone who is constantly poking the bear or giving a nudge, right?
hmm
Um, and so myself and I've been using this thing. No avail isn't over, just because I've had in the past issues with people who have tried to, I don't want to say discredit my accomplishments, but at the very least have made it known that they have issues with how much or I promote myself.
hmm
So I started doing that as kind of just a way of being like, I'm
yeah,
not over.
yeah,
Ah.
hmm
Um, and my tag partner, Ather Namada, was like, why don't you just do an entire promo like that? You do it all the time. And I was like, that's a really interesting idea. So uh, I went to my videographer friend, I sat down, and I just kind of started talking about all the things that I am definitely not
yeah,
over, not a good wrestler, definitely don't connect with fans, not a great promo, and just going through all of those things and hoping people would get the bit.
yeah,
And I'm lucky that people got the bit,
yeah.
because if not, I would just be chuckling by myself in the back of the room like an asshole.
Mhm. Yeah, I live in a world where I I don't I'm there's this whole idea that everybody is similar and you kind of think everybody has the same values and but in the same regards you could like think something and it could be completely opposite. But I mostly like if I think something's funny, that's good enough for me. I'll put it
Mhm.
out there, and if you find it funny, that's great. Um, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily work. Like I like to make funny like sketches and stuff and put them on TikTok and do things like that. Sometimes like 1,000 people will like see it and nobody will like it. Like it's kind of this. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. I'm being honest.
No, I get it because it's that like it's that for me it's that freedom of just being like I'm gonna post this. If it goes somewhere, cool. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm a big I guess I view professional wrestling as my art, my chosen art form.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do things because I think it's going to get me over or I think it's going to give me views or whatever. I want to do stuff that I just think is cool. And when I was making that promo, I just thought it would be a fun bit. And I was like, this would be a really cool thing for me to have. And I wanted to see if I could make it, and I was able to do so.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that has kind of propelled your success in wrestling is that kind of thought. To jump around a little bit, recently you, I don't know if this is like choreography or whatever, but Effy's Big Gay Thanksgiving recently.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Kind of in our neck of the woods here. What was that experience like for you, getting the call and then being able to perform on that platform?
So, gosh, so getting the opportunity to do Effy's Big Gay Thanksgiving was kind of cool because it was like I saw. I have a lot of friends due to my excursions that are in the Carolina area.
Yeah.
Shout out Goon Squad. Shout out, shout out Bojack. Shout out Kyle. Big Guapo fan. But like getting the opportunity to go to the Carolinas was something I always wanted to do. Just because I'd been there before on vacation and I had met so many of the wrestlers from that area that, I just kind of wanted to hang out with my friends. So whenever Elevation had asked me and said, hey, we've had a lot of people reach out about having you on this event. Would you be interested? I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The entire experience was amazing. The travel was fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
But the actual like show and getting to wrestle Bo and getting to hang out backstage with like Effy and Allie and meet a bunch of really cool people from the Carolinas was honestly very it was very rewarding. I got to meet Soraya Saber for the first time. That was sick. I got to win my first big gay event, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I got the opportunity to perform in front of people who apparently had been following me for a really long time, who had just never gotten the opportunity to see me to wrestle live and in person because I live in Florida.
Mhm.
So that was a really cool experience overall. And being like on that level of platform doing like Big Gay Thanksgiving and then eventually Big Gay Brunch.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. It's like it's really weird to go from wrestling in a flea market for like 5 people and then it's like, hey, you're doing these massive shows. It's like,
Yeah.
shit, am I supposed to be here? Like,
I have a sub question. The building for Big Gay Thanksgiving, is that the how does that locker room rank on all of the locker rooms that you've been in as far as like size? And as somebody who's been in that locker room,
it's not the worst I've been in for
okay.
sure. Like it's probably like right smack dab in the middle.
Okay.
Like the only reason I don't think it's higher is just because it was cold as shit and me being from Florida, physically incapable of dealing with anything underneath like 70 degrees. It's not possible. I'm not built for it. But overall, I didn't mind it. It was nice. There was enough space for me to stretch and exist, and it wasn't like I've had to use a pinch a penny pool place as my locker room. Like I'm good. Like I'm super good.
Okay. So I've definitely, you've probably been in a lot more locker rooms than I have, but that was one of the tightest ones for me.
Yeah.
So Effy's Big Gay Thanksgiving leads to Effy's Big Gay Brunch. After Big Gay Thanksgiving, what was the aftermath of that like? Was there like a noticeable bump in things, or was it kind of like steady on as that happened?
So after Big Gay Thanksgiving, it's a weird effect that it had where it was steady with what I was doing in terms of like the out of state stuff because it was like I had a ton of out of state stuff before Big Gay Thanksgiving where I was interacting with a lot of people and
Hmm.
going to a lot of shows in a lot of different areas, getting to wrestle for Destination 6 in Illinois, which is where I met a lot of other North Carolina people,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is why I ended up at Elevation. Um, Including their ex heavyweight champion. Shout out the Infinity Man, Tim.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Tim's great. Love him.
um, but it was this weird effect where it didn't necessarily increase like my out of state traveling bookings,
Mm.
but like back home, it was like it was insane. It was a weird feeling of like everyone started to I don't want to say treat me differently, but there was like a noticeable like, okay, the dial has been turned up now.
Yeah.
The expectation has been turned up now. I'm in a different tax bracket, let's say.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. So you go there, and then you go to the recent Tampa show, which um, seems like it was a great, like, just awesome show from everything I've seen. What was the second opportunity like for a big gay brunch for you?
Um, More anxiety inducing, and I was genuinely surprised. I think being in there, and this is full transparency. Big fan of transparency is no avail.
Yeah.
Um, I think being in there with someone who was a lot greener than I was at Big Gay Thanksgiving with Bo, um, being kind of in charge of having to lead that dance,
Hmm.
it made me less anxious because it was like, I can't be afraid right now. I have to take care of this person.
Yeah.
And going into Big Gay Brunch 8 in Tampa was, it was a lot of, I don't want to say, it was a lot of pressure, but good pressure. It was very much a coal into diamond moment. It felt like because it was I'm wrestling a veteran, Keita Murray. I'm wrestling in my not home town, but the home wrestling town for me. And I have a bunch of people that are my friends and like people I look up to that are watching very intently.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience once I got into there. It was completely and totally nerve wracking before, but like once the wrestling happened, it's like riding a bike.
Awesome. Um, and then as far as having that platform, especially being from Florida, where a lot of the legislation, a lot of the laws aren't necessarily friendly for the LGBTQ plus T. I'm I don't know exactly all of them, but um, that
You
community,
got more than most.
yeah,
I'm super stoked on that,
yeah.
Loki.
So what is it like being able to not only wrestle in your hometown for this big promotion, but it's not just any big show. It's a big show that's spotlighting the queer community that you are a part of. And like, that's got to be pretty cool, especially given like the political landscape that Florida currently exists in.
It's uh it's weird. Effie is an older generation Florida brother. Um, Trailblazer in this state for what is queer wrestling, and to describe it as like a euphoric experience is like an understatement just because it's one thing going to a local show and having people come up and tell you that they've never seen a queer wrestler before or that they've never been able to experience somebody who is their same gender identity or has their same sort of like their same, queer leanings.
Mhm.
It's completely different to have an environment where it is a celebration of that. And it's a totally safe space, not just for people who are queer or questioning or may not be queer but just really like the wrestling that is
Mhm.
going on and likes the message and the vibe of everything, and they just also feel different in some way and they want to feel safe. Like that, especially in a place like Florida, is so important because it's been really weird for me, ever since I became more public about my own genderqueer and pansexuality, that there have been a lot more uh, there have been a lot more queer people coming to the shows that I'm on, and a
Mhm.
lot more of them coming up to me saying like, I didn't think wrestling was for me. I didn't think
Yeah.
that I was allowed to be into this sort of thing, or that there was somebody that could be like me at a wrestling show. And to be that for a lot of people is really fucking cool. Like it's a nice feeling, and to know that it's just glowing on such a bigger level, and that there are so many more people who can now feel safe, and that there are so many more people that can now feel the experience of safety, of acceptance. Um, it's cool. It's cool as fuck.
Yeah. um, any chance? I'll just say fuck Ron DeSantis. Um,
Yeah, fuck Ron DeSantis. Absolutely.
um, but yeah. So your post Effie's big gay lunch. I hopefully it's not post. Hopefully that's a continuing thing. But what is on the landscape for No Avail? What do you want to achieve in the next year, the next 5 years, and then like as like long term goals with wrestling? Like, what are you looking to get out of this?
Um, for me, I want to just, I don't know. It's so there's never been like a destination in mind when it comes to No Avail. There's never been an end point. It's not that I want to work a specific company. It's not that
Mhm.
I want to, go to a specific place. I make a lot of little goals for myself, and I try to knock them down. And incredibly candid, I just want to continue to grow No Avail to be bigger and better, and go to more places and see the world through professional wrestling and meet more people, and in a very selfish way knock off a lot of my heroes.
Yeah.
I I want to have those matches with queer royalty in the scene, with the Dark Sheiks, with the Edith Surreals, with the Effys. Um, I want to continue to wrestle, young up and comers in the scene alongside myself,
Mhm.
like a Rico Gonzalez, like a Robert Martyr, like a Sir Nightmare Donovan. I want to continue to be a great tag team wrestler with the Night City Machine Guns, with Athra and Amada. Um, and I guess for myself, I want to, on a very selfish level,
Mhm.
not only prove that Florida wrestling is something that matters and should be back at the standard bearer level that it once was, but to prove that, like, and to continue to prove that just because you're queer or a minority or anything like that, you don't have to fit into anybody's boxes, and that you can be whatever it is that you want to be,
Yeah.
and that you're fully capable regardless of what anyone says. And that for me is the most important thing. Like I don't know. No Avail isn't over, but No Avail is very, very important for the
Yeah.
youth.
Yeah.
um, but that's my goals, man. I just want to continue to do things bigger and better. I want to travel everywhere. I want to fight everybody. I want to be No Avail, and I want all the little tiny queer children to see and to grow, and to know that they too, when they are old enough, can knock me off and continue to be fucking menaces.
That's awesome. You want to be a queer final boss.
I do. And then when the next final boss comes in, whenever the true golden child of professional wrestling arrives,
Yeah.
they can take my place and I can rest, and I don't know, paint in the countryside or something. I don't fucking know what old people do.
Yeah, I think that old people are. It's weird to think that old people now are like the guys that were or the people that were playing like Zelda. So like
Right?
they're not going to be like watching Walker Texas Ranger. They're just going to like take out their N64 and start playing.
Exactly. It's like when we
So
play Ocarina of Time for the 50th
yeah,
time or something. I don't fucking
yeah,
know.
that sounds like a good retirement for me. Um, we like to end this podcast each time with kind of putting other people over. So, who are some wrestlers that you think that more people need to know about?
Wrestlers that people need to know about that I don't think that they know about. I hate that I have to put them over, but I'm going to put them over this one time. The Gifted, the trio of Wheezy T, Logan Cruz, and Leroy Shogun. They're a fantastic trio, a fantastic tag team, and fantastic singles wrestlers. Um, I think that more people should know about my younger brother, Azrael Rowe, who is also a fantastic singles wrestler and one third, oh God, of our trio of the Sexy Angels, along with our other partner, Iki the Reason, who is another fantastic wrestler people should know about. I think people should know about fantastic women's wrestlers in the state of Florida. I think that Kendall Ryan is a fantastic wrestler. I think that Emily Locke is a fantastic females wrestler. I think more people should pay attention to the other queer talent in the state. Shamira Moore, that's coming up. They just debuted. Christian Osborne has also just debuted, or Osha Osborne, I'm sorry. I think that there's so much good wrestling, and there's so much good wrestling just in the entirety of the state and in the entirety of the country overall that people really should pay attention to. I've already mentioned Soraya Saber, but my favorite, I don't tell anyone this, Sigrid, daughter of Tyr, greatest fucking wrestler I've ever seen in my life. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Big Viking kicks people in the face, does the Bruiser Brody fucking where's a goat skull to the ring? I'm in. I'm in. I'll take 10. That's all I need.
Awesome. Well, this has been absolutely great. I'd love to have you back on sometime. Before we go, where can everybody find you again? Is there any way to like support you like via merch or anything like that as well? I know you got a pretty cool shirt on right now.
So, if you would like to support Noah Vale and the House to Vale in all of their endeavors, you can follow me on X/Twitter at Noah X Vale. You can follow me on Instagram at NoahVale97. You can find me on Facebook at just Noah Vale, and that's VEIL. And if you would like to support the House to Vale, as gas and Wawa and Buc-ee's briskets are not cheap, you can go to the link tree inside of any of the bios on any of my social medias. That will take you to my Teespring store, as well as the fully gimmicked shop. I guess I'm technically a sponsored athlete. I'm the WRN All Florida champion, so I don't know if that's a sponsored athlete or they have to put out my merch because I have their belt. Haha. But you can also find all the links for my merch and stuff like there. Got tons of t-shirts. This one I'm wearing here with a little cute little trans flag and a little cartoon me on the back, but I can't turn around to show you because my entire setup here is very delicate.
Which one of those is the place that you get the most money if somebody buys?
Teespring, I believe.
All right, so check out Teespring. Teespring you can buy like pretty much anything.
Oh yeah,
stickers.
I got a dumb amount of like joggers. I've got tights. I've got a lot of variants of shirts that some of which I don't really even carry on shows with me because it's just easier to have them up on here, and you can get a different variety of designs. There should be one going up in the next week or two that is a NWA style or NWO style shirt, but it's the non-binary flag and it says "No Veil is not over." So
that's awesome. Yeah, be on the lookout for that. I'd love to have you back on. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And I'd say No Veil is over, but I'm contrarian.
The jury is still out.
I wish you the best of luck. I always say this, but when you hit the big time, don't forget about us.
Oh, don't worry. I absolutely will not. I will be as insufferable on television as I am in any other context. I feel bad for anybody who signs me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too.